Today I'm finally just going to do it. This is a video that I tried to avoid making for a little bit now, but you know, I just got to talk about it. It's something that's been annoying me, and what this is kind of just a rant video on the Dark Aether storyline, and yeah, that's what we're doing here today. And honestly, I thought it'd be a perfect time to do it because honestly, I think most zombies players right now are just feeling really grumpy right now. We're all just a bunch of grumpy kids right now, just thinking like, it's been so long since Treyarch has acknowledged the existence of zombies, you know? The last major update we had is like back in February, and it's May now. Treyarch, you know, it's been a while since anything of significance has happened in zombies, so it'd be nice to acknowledge that we exist again. But, you know, everyone's overall just feeling kind of grumpy because of that, and I thought since everyone's feeling kind of negative, kind of grumpy towards zombies, when's a better time to make a negative and grumpy video, you know? So that's what we're doing here today. But with that said, let's actually just jump into everything that I want to talk about. But actually, before we can do that, I first want to explain something real quick. When I'm going to be making this video complaining about the Dark Aether storyline, I actually am not going to complain about the story itself and the substance of it, because I know what they're trying to do, and they're setting up a brand new story. They're doing a lot of world building, which is something they really never did in the original Aether storyline, so I appreciate for that. So I don't really have too many issues with the story itself, and that's not what I'm going to be complaining about here today. Instead, what I'm complaining about here today is the storytelling and how they choose to tell this Dark Aether story, and that is what I want to complain about, because that is what frustrates me, how they are telling this story. And we're going to be going through that here today. And to really start this off, I think the best way to find my main problem with this storytelling in this game is to really think about it. How do we learn most of our story information in this game? Like, what is our main source of story information in this game? It's from the intel, more specifically the radio intel, and yeah, that's where the vast majority of our story information is in these radios, which is just something that I think is kind of ridiculous, and it kind of isn't what radios were in the past, because radios in the past, they weren't our main source of story information, but now that's how we learn about everything. That's how we learn about the Dark Aether. That's how we learn about Maxis. That's how we learn about Omega. That's how we learn about Requiem. That's how we learn about everything that is important in this story, and that's just something that I just don't really think is really cool. I just don't think all of our main source of story information should be coming from radios, because that's just not what radios were in the past. They weren't supposed to be our main source of story information outside of like World at War and maybe early Black Ops 1, right? Like, that's just not what we do. We moved past radios being our main source of story information forever ago. Like, this is something that we kind of moved on from so long ago, yet for some reason we've returned to this, and I just don't really get why that's the case. Because I mean, to me, I just feel like the better, like in the past and more recent years, like even in Black Ops 4, Black Ops 3, and Black Ops 2, these games, we had so many different ways to learn about the story. Obviously, we had radios, then we kind of had ciphers, but then we started getting like character quotes that told a lot of important things for the story, which we'll get into characters in a bit, trust me. And then in more recent times, at the end of Black Ops 2 to Black Ops 3, we even had cutscenes learning about the story, which is something that we really love to see. And you know, those are things that we learned our story from, you know, a lot of different ways, whereas in this, radios have been our main source of story information, or I guess kind of their story during the cutscene, which I appreciate. That's one thing they've kept over from the past, but either way, it just, to me, it doesn't make sense why the radios are our main source of story information in this game at all. And to me, it kind of destroys the whole purpose or the whole feel of what radios were in the past. And I could go on a whole explanation for why I think that is the case and why I just don't feel like they're keeping what radios originally were, but that's not important. Either way, the main problem with this is that we are learning the vast majority of our story information from one source, and that's not a good thing in my opinion, at the very least. Now moving on to our other issues, and let's talk about this other one. And let's talk about probably what used to be probably our main source of major storyline information in the past. And what these are cutscenes, right? Cutscenes used to be, at least in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4, like where we learned the major storyline points. Like, this is where we learn the major things, right? Then if you think about Black Ops 3, The Rise of the Rocket, for example, the intro, it shows how we got to that map. We had the giant, we went over there, we got shot down. When we show up to the map, and we're going over there to find the other Dempsey, right? And that's something we learned right from the get-go, from the intro and the Rise you spawn when you see the rocket going up, right? That's something we just learn a ton of story information that perfectly sets up that map. And then the ending cutscene happens, and that's where we learn our major story information, that we're killing these characters and collecting their souls, right? And that's where we have nice character dynamics, where we see Richtofen, Dempsey, and all that. Either way, you guys know what's happening. I don't know why I need to explain it. Either way, that's not something we have anymore. We literally don't have that. We kind of have, at least one map has an outro, and the other one has a sorry excuse for outro, if you even want to call it an outro. But what both of these maps are missing are intros. Both D Machina and Firebase C, just like intro exe deleted, or exe probably wouldn't fit that, or intro mp4 deleted, dude. It's just like, why don't we have intros for these? Like, why can't we just properly set up these maps with intros like we did in the past? I don't understand it. I mean, people were complaining in Black Ops 4 that the intros and outros were cartoons, drawings, and stuff like that. And I mean, sure, it sucks that they weren't CGI, but at least we had them, right? And I don't know, man. And to start off from the right away in the year without having any intros, just to me seems kind of ridiculous, if you ask me. And because of that, I just hate that we don't have nearly as many cutscenes inside this, because cutscenes is where you learn the most important things about the story. And when we don't have cutscenes, it's harder to get people to be interested in the story, because that's the easiest way to consume a story is through cutscenes. Not radios, not ciphers, not documents. It's through cutscenes. That should be how we get our main points of the story. That should be what that is. And that's just something that we don't really have. And don't get me wrong, Firebase C, pretty solid outro cutscene, but I mean, it's just not enough when we don't have intros and outros that are proper for every map, or just have intros to begin with. And no, that Samantha Booth thing is not the intro to with D Machina. That's just a cutscene. Don't get me wrong. It's a good cutscene, but it's not an intro. Either way, let's move on to our final thing. And honestly, we're just going to leave it off here, because I could talk about other problems I have with it, but I just don't want to make this video too long, because I've been re-recording this video to make it shorter for a while now. Either way, let's talk about this final issue. And I don't really want to explain why it's such a big problem, because how many times have I done it in the past? But characters. Okay, now the characters themselves, we'll get to playable characters, trust me, but the characters themselves currently, they're just not interesting. Like, Weaver kind of sucks. Kravchenko, the guy who's leading Omega, they're just campaign characters. Like, why are we bringing campaign characters over here? I just don't get that. Like, haven't we moved past it where we, stop using just campaign characters and bringing them over to zombies? Like, didn't we, not do that anymore since, Black Ops 2 back in 2012? It's 2021, almost, 10 years later. It's 9 years now. So why are we doing that? I mean, I just don't like that personally. Of course, that's a personal preference, but whatever. But even if we want to ignore my personal preference there, I still think the characters themselves just aren't interesting. Like, we list off the characters that are currently in the story. Weaver, I don't know anybody who likes this guy who just radios in and tells you information that you don't care about constantly throughout a game. We don't care about Strauss, because he just seems like a leftover asset from Black Ops, or excuse me, World War II zombies. Major Carver is just not interesting at all. He's just a stereotypical, I'm a tough military guy, I'm a major, oh yeah, look at me, I'm tough, dude. It's just like, can we get any more stereotypical with him? Gray is just British doctor, British female doctor. It's just like, okay, she exists. And finally, we have ourselves Samantha Maxis. Of course, we could talk about the more Omega characters, but I honestly just don't care. Either way, wait, actually, know what? I do care. Let's talk about Peck, that sorry kid. Can you get a worse voice for him? Why do we just have, I'm a typical evil bad guy. I'm so evil. Oh, I'm making this evil thing happen. Oh, yeah. I'm going to throw Samantha in the dark ether. Oh, yeah. I'm evil. Like, what is that voice? Okay, you know what? We're done. Valentina's in interesting and Samantha Maxis are the only two characters in this entire story that I have any like any interest in at all. The rest are just annoying, which I think is kind of a problem. But of course, that's again a very subjective, so I don't want to make that as a definite point, but instead we can make an objective point by talking about characters in another sense, and these are the playable characters. I personally just don't need to go into like extreme depths of why this is a problem to not have playable characters, because I've done that so many times in the past. So I'm just going to quickly run down the major problems with it instead. So yeah, it sucks because operators suck. The idea of putting operators instead of playable characters is one of the worst decisions in the history of zombies. It is stupid, it is dumb, it's just so bad. Oh my gosh, dude. I'd literally play as any crew in the history of zombies, not only Treyarch, but on top of that, I'd rather play as even the World War II crew than having operators. Okay, maybe I know, maybe that's kind of a stretch there, but either way, it just sucks because how we saw how well characters were in the past. You think of obviously Primus, obviously like Ultimus, and you know, those character groups are incredible, but even you think about it, since we're in this game, we're never going to have a proper playable crew. That means we're never even going to have characters like the Mob of the Dead characters, the Shadows of Evil characters, or even the Transit for the creeps who like them. Like, we just don't have any chance of having good characters anymore that we could play as, and it sucks because those characters are so good. And the whole idea of zombies and why so many people fell in love with this stupid storyline to even begin with was because of the characters, and they just completely cut them out. The playable characters, imagine doing that. But either way, I could go on forever talking about the idea of taking out the characters, but like I said, I've made so many videos talking about that I just need to stop. So either way, hopefully this video was entertaining. Maybe, I don't know, it's just me kind of raging and ranting for a bit. So yeah, I don't know, man. If you know, could you guys like and subscribe, maybe even hit the bell, something like that? I don't know, man. Either way, I'm gonna go catch you guys in the next one.